chill out on that. But otherwise, no, I really do feel good. It's funny because you feel so good going into training camp.
Under the bright lights of the WNBA, the energy of a season can shift in a single play. One moment, fans are caught up in the rhythm of baskets traded back and forth, the game balanced delicately on the edge of competition. The next, everything comes to a screeching halt, the roar of the crowd replaced by uneasy silence. That was the atmosphere when Sophie Cunningham collapsed to the hardwood, clutching her knee, her season abruptly torn away in an instant. The Indiana Fever would later confirm the worst, an MCL tear that would sideline one of their most resilient players for the remainder of the year. But the story that unfolded wasn't just about an injury. It was about how that injury happened, the player involved in the collision, and the firestorm that erupted the moment cameras caught Bria Hartley smirking as Cunningham was helped off the court. That image became the defining frame of
when your back's up against the wall, but also really coming into our own and really thriving. And I think
the night, a freeze frame of Hartley glancing back, her lips curled in a grin that many interpreted as sinister, circulated like wildfire across social feeds. It wasn't the collision itself that fans dissected frame by frame, but her expression afterward. A grin, people argued, that revealed intent. Within hours, Hartley wasn't just another player caught up in a hard fall. She became the face of outrage, accused of reveling in an opponent's pain. Clips of the smirk went viral, and critics pored over every second of footage as though searching for a confession caught on tape. On the court, the play itself had looked like chaos. Both teams were trading possessions, the pace quick, the tension mounting. Then Hartley barreled across the floor at an awkward angle, colliding with Cunningham's planted leg. Sophie collapsed immediately, her face contorted in pain as she clutched her knee. Fans in the arena held their breath, trainers rushing toward her, teammates surrounding her in
Find the positive, learn from everything. And at the end of the day, you're playing basketball for a living. You're getting the opportunity to play basketball for a living.
concern. But what the cameras captured away from Sophie's fall was the expression that now overshadowed the moment entirely. For fans, Hartley's smirk was not just inappropriate, it was incriminating. The context only deepened the outrage. Hartley already carried a reputation for playing on the edge of control. In recent seasons, she'd been ejected after physical run-ins, her name surfacing again and again whenever controversy followed a hard foul. Most infamously, she'd been caught up in a heated clash with Angel Reese that involved a hair pull, an incident that left many questioning her sportsmanship long before Cunningham went down. So when the smirk appeared, it wasn't viewed in isolation. It was painted against the backdrop of past altercations, building the perception of a player whose aggression had become reckless, maybe even malicious. Fans dug deeper, unearthing even more ammunition against her. On Instagram, screenshots
say like a combination of Northwestern and Maryland. I think Maryland's physicality and athleticism mixed with kind of the funky zone
revealed Hartley liking posts that mocked the incident, with captions labeling her the dirtiest player in the league. Death, taxes, and Bria Hartley always being at the scene of the crime, one post read, stamped with the still image of her tugging at Angel Reese in a past altercation. The fact that she liked it seemed to confirm what critics were already saying. She wasn't remorseful. She was leaning into the chaos, unapologetic in the face of a serious injury. That single action online turned what might have been considered an unfortunate accident into what many now described as a pattern. But outrage didn't only come from fans. Sophie Cunningham's family stepped into the spotlight with a fury rarely seen in professional sports. Her sister Lindsay went directly at the league in a post that quickly spread across social platforms. She accused officials of failing to protect players, hammering them for inconsistent calls and misplaced priorities. Her words carried sharp bite.
But again, I'm not a doctor, so it's really up to them.
What's been your impressions of Sydney Colson as both a point guard and a teammate?
Yeah.
Reminding everyone that Sophie herself had already been fined earlier in the season for criticizing referees. To Lindsay, the hypocrisy was blatant. Players fined for voicing concerns, while dangerous plays on the court went unchecked. The family's anger struck a chord because it wasn't just about Sophie's injury. It reflected a sentiment that had been simmering all season, that officiating standards in the WNBA were not keeping players safe. Her mother, Paula Cunningham, went further still. blasting Hartley as disgruntled, mean, and out of control. Though her post was quickly deleted, screenshots made sure the message never disappeared. Fans treated it as validation, confirmation that what they had seen in Hartley's smirk wasn't imagined malice, but something deeply felt by the people closest to Sophie. Deleted or not, the Cunningham family's voice made it impossible to brush the incident off as just another unfortunate basketball collision. The criticism didn't stop there.
Mates can see that as well, so I would probably say that part of it, and obviously I get to play with the best of the world.
Fever fans were livid, their frustration boiling over at what they described as a repeated pattern of opponents injuring their players. Without consequences, they accused Hartley of not only hurting Sophie, but mocking the aftermath with her grin. The referee's lack of immediate response became another point of fury, sparking broader conversations about accountability and leadership in the league. For many, this was no longer just about one play or one player. It was about the WNBA's credibility in protecting its athletes. As the outrage grew, attention shifted upward to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and the league office. Calls for stronger player protection, harsher consequences for dangerous plays, and higher standards for officiating grew louder by the hour. Media outlets seized on the story, framing it as part of a larger debate about safety, fairness, and accountability within the WNBA. The question was no longer just whether Hartley deserved punishment, but whether the league itself had been neglecting its responsibility. And yet, on the court, something remarkable unfolded. Indiana, devastated by the loss of Cunningham and already without Caitlin Clark, looked destined for collapse. At halftime, they trailed by 21 points, their offense sputtering, and their defense struggling to keep pace. Broadcasters framed the game as a test of survival, rather than a fight for victory. But inside the Fever huddle, a spark of resilience ignited. The players tightened their rotations, leaned on grit instead of panic, and mounted one of the most improbable comebacks in franchise history. Kelsey Mitchell became the heartbeat of that rally. Exploding in the second half, she scored 34 of her 38 points after the break, dragging Indiana back into contention with every shot she sank. Around her, Odyssey Sims steadied the offense, Aaliyah Boston dominated the paint, and together they erased the deficit possession by possession. By the final buzzer, Indiana had stunned the league, turning a night that began in despair into a record-breaking 21-point comeback. For the Fever, it wasn't just a win. It was a statement of resilience, a refusal to let tragedy dictate the end of their season. But the spotlight after the game didn't fall on Mitchell's heroics. It circled back to Hartley, who suddenly disappeared from the public eye. Within days, her social media accounts were either locked down or deleted entirely, a move that only fueled speculation. Was she bracing for suspension? Was she quitting the team altogether? Rumors swirled online, painting her as a player running from accountability while the league quietly deliberated her future. For fans, her silence was an admission of guilt. For critics, it was proof that she couldn't withstand the weight of her own actions. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham refused to fade into the background. From the locker room to social media, she made her voice heard. In a defiant post, she wrote simply, "F around and find out." The message wasn't directed at Hartley specifically, but at critics, doubters, and anyone questioning her toughness. It was a rallying cry, a bold statement that despite her injury, she wasn't backing down. Fans embraced it instantly, spreading it across platforms until it became one of the defining quotes of the season. Sophie had turned her pain into defiance, her absence into leadership. Then came the twist that complicated everything. On her podcast, Cunningham surprised many by explicitly defending Hartley. She insisted she didn't believe Bria intended to hurt her, explaining that they were friends and had nothing but love for each other. It was a shocking contrast to the fury swirling online and within her own family. By giving Hartley the benefit of the doubt, Sophie complicated the narrative, reminding everyone that intent is difficult to prove and that not every hard fall should be labeled as dirty. But while she defended Hartley, her criticism of the league remained sharp. Sophie had been fined multiple times for speaking out, and now she used her platform to underline the bigger issue. inconsistent officiating, and misplaced priorities. That dual response, defiance toward critics, compassion toward her opponent, and frustration with the league, cemented Sophie's role as a leader, even from the sidelines. She wasn't just another injured player, she was shaping the conversation, controlling the narrative, and refusing to let her voice be silenced. In the end, the night that began with heartbreak became a defining chapter in the WNBA's ongoing story about accountability, resilience, and leadership. Bria Hartley's smirk may have sparked outrage, but Sophie Cunningham's defiance ensured the moment would not be defined solely by anger. Indiana's comeback victory added a layer of triumph to the pain, proof that even in their darkest moments, the Fever would not fold.